The woman at the center of the proposed international specialized hospital at Lubowa along Entebbe Road, Enrica Maria Aristidina Pinetti, is not squeaky clean. She's amongst 104 individuals from Italy named in the 2016 Panama Papers. Offshore havens are often used to escape high taxes, and their use is not necessarily illegal. According to the leaks, Pinetti was listed amongst directors of an offshore company, Aka Magna for Heritage Conservation, domiciled in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, and in British Virgin Islands in the Caribbean. The leaks further showed that both the company Aka Magna for Heritage Conservation and Pinetti are linked to several shadowy companies like Finassi Energy, Trinity Group, and Happy Limited. Flying in the face of expert opinion, Parliament last week hurriedly approved a deal for this hospital, a pet project of the Italian investor. Through the Finance Ministry request, promissory notes amounting to 1.4 trillion shillings for this project will be doled out as a guarantee to Finassi to mobilize funds from its lenders, Afrexim Bank and Absa Barclays Bank, for construction of the hospital. A promissory note is a financial instrument that contains a written response by one party to pay another party a specific amount of money either upon demand or at a given future date. In total, the hospital will cost 2 trillion shillings, including financing and operational management costs during the first 8 years. Besides the financial guarantee, the government also gave 32 acres of land, but the ownership of the land in question is under dispute. In approving this deal, did Finance Ministry technocrats cave in as a result of the immense influence the Italian investor wields? Was due diligence on the company which was awarded the tender to design, finance, construct and operate the 240-bed capacity hospital carried out? Makerere University Law Don Dr. Benson Tusasirwe says the hospital project raises more questions than answers.
Because if you are only guaranteeing, why would you issue a promissory note? A promissory note is not a first line of security that one expects you to give. Could give you an ordinary guarantee, you give what we call a suretyship. In fact, the simplest is what we call a letter of comfort, simply assuring the lender that this investor is part of is within our plans, and we can assure you we will support them. From the next best is a suretyship. The next, in terms of being giving assurance, is the guarantee. When you reach the level of promissory note, you are beginning to own the project. But why would you commit yourself to a project unless you have sufficient controls over it? The question then is, does this government have sufficient controls over the project, which it is guaranteeing at the highest possible level, at the level of a promissory note? Because the promissory note is next to cash.
The parliamentary approval for issuance of the promissory notes on March 12th followed a report by Parliament's Committee on the National Economy, which gave a no objection despite protests by a section of MPs who wrote a minority report. Some of the issues raised include why the matter was being hurried, procedural matters, and the need to conduct further due diligence on Finassi to save government any possible financial loss in the future.
Right, Honorable Speaker, the implication of it is that this investor is going to borrow money, and the cost in percentage term of this borrowed money is 32%. This is the most expensive loan this government will ever go to.
Smuggled document, and right, Honorable Speaker, you know that the Women's Hospital has been built recently at 450 beds at only 25 million. This one, $25 million. This one is going to be 200 and something beds at $390 million. Are we talking with sanity in our heads? There is something definitely wrong. Somebody has smuggled something dangerous in this parliament, and they want to invoke parliament to approve what is illegal.
Even that poor company they chose asked for $240 million, but today here we have passed $379.71 million. What the balance is going to do, nobody knows.
MPs, however, fervently voiced support for the hospital project, arguing that once it's completed and fully operational, it will save government millions of dollars spent on treatment abroad.
The principle is that indeed we do want specialized hospitals or facilities in this country, and it has enormous benefits. We shall cut down on a lot of cost. But even that is how our country, the economy, can grow.
And I think it's much cheaper for us, and in the strategic way, for us to have a hospital here, and we don't hemorrhage our dollars outside. So in principle, I support the international hospital based on scientific facts, not on emotion.
The government's key defense has been anchored on saving millions of dollars spent on treating privileged senior government officials abroad, and not necessarily whether it will be affordable to a majority of Ugandans. The report by Parliament's Committee on the National Economy detailed that between the financial years 2013 to 2014 and 2015 to 2016, an estimated 10 billion shillings, excluding costs of flights, upkeep and attendance costs, was spent on treating VIP officials abroad. The list itself of who is given approval for treatment abroad has for years remained a tightly guarded secret. Fears are abounding that once completed, the hospital will be too costly for ordinary Ugandans to afford. State Minister for Finance David Bahati told Parliament that the hospital will have international certification from the Joint Commission International, which accredits and certifies world-class healthcare facilities.
This will be the first in Uganda and actually the next to Aga Khan in the region, which is in Nairobi, and even Aga Khan is only partially accredited. The accreditation to the Joint Commission International comes with a number of benefits.
Already, there are several private health facilities, not yet to this level, but whose prices are nearly a deterrent to most Ugandans. It's not yet clear why government is prioritizing guaranteeing funds for an investor at the time the health sector is ailing and needs funding to recruit health workers.
Where we have number of districts without any hospital at all at 39, number of constituencies without a health center 4 at 29, number of sub-counties with no health center 3, but have a health center 2 that can be upgraded at 331, number of sub-counties with no health center 3, but have a health center 4 or a hospital 188, number of sub-counties with no health facility at all 132.
President Museveni, who initially objected to the idea of granting financial guarantee to the Italian investor, had a change of mind in his letter dated 25 February 2019, which was read out by the Speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, on March 12th on the floor of Parliament.
I therefore wish to confirm my unquestionable support for the International Specialized Hospital of Uganda and request Parliament to expedite its consideration of the project and accordingly approve its financing arrangements if they align with the law. President Yoweri Museveni.
In December 2018, when the company presented the first certificates, it necessitated issuance of promissory notes which required parliamentary approval. Ayivu County MP Bernard Atiku, who is amongst the lawmakers that authored a minority report, told Entebbe that the promissory notes financing modality gives FINACI 100% funding and guarantees to safeguard them from any losses whatsoever.
How do we guarantee our interest as a country in this investment to ensure that the investors don't doing shoddy work? Because somebody can put something temporal to recoup whatever money he has invested in, and after he has left, the facility is unusable to the public. So this, the missing of the project monitoring committee component to us is something that we need to understand before really thinking that this is a good venture.
Other experts have argued that the promissory notes guaranteeing financing to Finasi was another form of disguised borrowing to circumvent public scrutiny over the country's debt sustainability levels.
No doubt that this is a commercial loan being taken by government in a different language, if you like. It's coming at a cost of about 6.47%, which is not like the most exorbitant of costs. Everything depends on whether the market actually materializes, because the government intends to ring fence the revenues coming from that hospital to go towards the amortization of that loan and the paying back. But there's no doubt to me that this is a loan that has been taken by government. But perhaps where the confusion is in the public is they are saying, why is the private sector being given a promissory note? But I wanted to clarify that this hospital is going to be owned by the government at the end of the day. It's just that government will only take it over when it has been built. So there is a certain level of risk for the private investor that if they don't build it up to standard, then they will have to take over that liability. Whereas for the financiers' point of view, which is in this case Afrexim Bank, for them, their debt is covered. I think the condition they gave is that they will only finance it if the government is committed to pay.
Available records indicate that after 6 years of operation, Finasi will hand over management of the hospital to government. The loan request for construction of a specialized hospital came at a time when government is renovating Mulago, with Mulago now a specialized facility, and the additional upgrade of Uganda Cancer Institute and the Uganda Heart Institute. The Uganda Medical Association and civil society actors have questioned the rationale of spending another 2 trillion shillings on a hospital whose services won't come cheap at all.
Which Ugandans are being obligated in the form of this promissory note. If ideally it is a VIP hospital, should then all Ugandans, including those poor ones in Chana Mukaka and in Kavera Maido and in Busimbi, in Mitiana, all bear that cost for purposes of VIP? That's an issue that government still needs to clarify to Ugandans about. Of course, looking at the project, an issue of value for money comes in.
So that hospital duplicates and outcompetes demand for resources by crucial yet unfinished low-hanging fruit. By low-hanging fruit, we mean a place like Mulago Hospital. Government has already invested in renovating it, has bought equipment. It's just about to open. So by reallocating and prioritizing resources to Lubowa Hospital, Mulago will be starved.
Another sticky issue is the unresolved ownership of the Lubowa land on which the hospital complex will sit. But Lands Minister Betty Amongi told Parliament last week that the land is unencumbered and the current ownership lies in the hands of the Uganda Land Commission.
This allotment, Madam Speaker, indicates each of the chief what land you have been allotted under the 1900 agreement. In this allotment, there is no land indicated in this allotment that is related to the land in question.
Amongi's statement, however, attracted criticism from lawyer Peter Mulira, who is representing one of the parties in the suit.
But I was surprised to hear the Minister of Justice, Minister of Lands, tell Parliament that government has a valid title deed. Government does not have a valid title deed. What it has is a freehold title deed over Milo land. That land is Milo land. And there's a problem about people understanding these intricacies, legal intricacies, because somebody thinks that once you have a title deed from the land office, it's signed by the commissioner, it's a title deed. It is not. And I think this is the attitude the Minister of Lands is taking, which is very, very dangerous.
Mulira also appeared before the National Economy Committee
to give my views on what I know about this land. I did that as a patriotic Ugandan, and I thought that my advice would have been considered seriously with a view to saving this country from running into unnecessary problems. But unfortunately, what I found in the parliamentary committee was very disappointing. They were not serious about the work they were doing. I didn't get the impression that they were working for Uganda.
As government attempts to paper over the cracks, the Secretary to the Treasury, Keith Mwakanizi, and other senior government officials are expected to address a news conference next week. Yet the common man will be eager to hear from the technocrats on how this hospital will offer a sliver of hope at the time they view healthcare as a privilege, not a right.